membership in order to make it worthwhile. Prime is great, but I would rather. Amazon has a problem because if you go there to buy to go stream on your tuner, it's not going to work. Those
Right.
sticks only work with their own smart speakers. So they've sort of take 10 steps forward and 20 steps backwards by saying, here, you can stream your Atmos on one of these. But if you'd like a second one and have stereo, you can buy two. I'm going, oh my God, I can't believe they're talking about Dolby Atmos and they're talking mono. It's spread out mono. I'm going, I can't believe what I'm seeing. Anyways, that was out the door. I didn't even consider them. So Apple wins hands down with the streaming. Tidal was great at streaming, and they still are, but it's not worth the extra money, in my opinion.
Right.
So after I make the MP4, which, well, by the way, they have instructions up there how to actually do anything from taking a 5.1 wave file and streaming it on a thumb drive to, and actually it's a FLAC, to the MP4s. It's a good file to have, but it's compressed, and it's some say that they hear a little bit of degradation on the top speakers. I'm not quite sure I buy that 100%, but I think it's a really great convenience. I have a player that also you can get from Dolby, which is that'll play your MP4s, and the volume is great. It sounds great to me. Then the last thing I do is I export re-renders, and I've got it set up to basically I can do any one of these. So the first thing I do is just go. I want these three as multi-channel interleaved files. This already, by the way, this already defaults to your in-out time of your that you've got on your session.
Okay.
So everything when you actually distribute this Atmos file, you have to distribute two things. You have to distribute a pair. You distribute the ADM and the parent file, which is or the partner file, which I make as a 3D binaural, not a stereo.
Right.
Even though I'll render a stereo because I want the clients to hear the difference when they put it in their phones, how much more live that is and spread out when you've got metadata from the binaural settings, which is that's another story that we could talk about. But but what I do is I think it's really a lot of engineers will tell you they don't like doing this, but I think you can stream 3D binaural on speakers just fine through this software.
Okay.
Which means that
Okay.
if you do that, if you think about that, and you put your stuff out on these three platforms, Amazon, Tidal, and Apple. Okay, that's all your, except for maybe Apple Music and Amazon Music as their partners. That's it. You basically are limited to that. So there is a difference in the volumes with these. When you release a 3D with Dolby Atmos, their restriction is minus 18 dB
Okay.
capped. So
Right.
what I do is I take the stereo file and I master it just like, I'm sorry, the 3D binaural file, excuse me, and I master it like I would any other stereo file because I master for Apple Digital Master. I'm a master, Apple ADM House, whatever that means. They certified me. So I can basically check the file out, make sure there's no peaks, and that's how I judge all my masters because I don't want to be the loudest guy. He's a ADM too. Good for you.
Okay.
I think it's really important that we all keep levels to a certain degree. But I end up mixing these things, and it's just so gorgeous to be in an minus 18 dB environment where you've got all this dynamic range, and you've got sound all around you, and you're in the middle of this. It's just you have to experience it. It's not anything that I can even tell you about. But then I have to cram it into two speakers, and I go,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is horrible." It's like,
So,
speaking
speaking of, this is all really good information, but I wonder if we could get like demo some things and try it out. I'm just gonna switch headphones here because I think
sure.
I'm gonna enjoy this a little bit better on my in-ears. I really want to know how you start a mix with the beds. So, like, how do you decide what you put in the beds for this song, and then build from there?
That's a good question, and it's really all up to you. And you might find that some things. I think it's important to keep it something you just know that you really don't need to break open again. For example, a drum kit. If you really wanted to not have to do the drums and you wanted to have it in the bed, that might work out well, or you might want to have a percussion bed.
Right.
But I like as many objects as I possibly can, and I don't. I think if I really want to separate a bed, I would look at two beds. I would look at the reverbs as being music reverbs and vocal reverbs, and then I would keep everything else as separated as you possibly can, because you're going to get more value out of this. Because I think the whole value for Atmos is licensing for film and television. I think
Right.
when you see that Apple TV is all Dolby Atmos right now, and you see that Netflix is going that way, and they have been for a while, we're not making any money on streams. So why even point in that direction? Because it's broken, and that's why I've been so passionate about this version, or this method, is that first of all, Dolby has always been in the film, so it would be a natural for a film guy to go, oh yeah, I know what that is. We're already set up for that. Here's an ADM file, import it in. Maybe we can mix a couple little different things based on how diverse the objects were. And you sort of have to think like a music editor. What would you want to have? Oh, thank you very much. I'll send the $5 afterwards. No, I'm sorry. It says,
This is great.
so think like a music editor. If you really want to get the value out of this, or think about it as if you've done your ADM and you don't want to have to go back into this mix again because you're using so much horsepower. I've got the 2019 Mac Pro because I don't want to buy into I need a second computer. I'm just strictly using the Atmos, the music production suite, the Dolby Atmos render.
There.
And I think that you can get really trapped into spending too much money. Your computer is going to be your that's always been the source of power for me. It's never skimp on the computer.
Right.
But you don't have to buy two, and you don't have to go for music. You don't really have to. You can see how far you can push it. I mean, I'm certainly pushing with all these 714 plugs and reverbs and things like that, and I'll have to go in at times just to, lighten up on the CPU load. But I never really go past 50%. So it's really not that bad. But if you want to hear something, I'm sorry to babble again, and I will babble.
I'll reel you in.
Thank you. Just don't hesitate to stop. This is something that, hopefully everything will work okay. And if I get a little glitch, I'll just reboot the renderer, because sometimes going through any third, the way we're doing this through loopback, this is how all the music is coming to you. Thanks to Brendan, we figured that out, and it was really easy once we figured it out.
Perfect.
We were trying all kinds of workarounds, but sometimes there's a little something that goes on there that it might disrupt the audio. But you'll hear it. And
no worries.
This is Doug James. He wrote a lot of hits back in the '80s. One is "How Am I Supposed to Live Without You," which probably if you're a lot younger than I am, you probably won't know that. But if you know a lot of '80s music, there were a lot like.
I'm an '80s child. I like the '80s.
Bolton wrote that with him, and he had, I think, 4 or 5 major cuts off of that. It was really incredible. And he wrote some other really good hit songs. So
awesome.
This is his first debut as an artist, and he's in his upper years, but it doesn't really matter because he's not out to prove anything to except just fulfill his bucket list and make the best songs he can for him singing. And so we decided to go ahead and submit this to the Grammys this year, and we put it into the HMMAs, which is called the Hollywood Music and Media Awards. And I recommend if anybody has anything that they feel that they want to sort of do a song contest of any kind, which I don't like song contests. I don't think there's anything to awards unless you're getting a Grammy or an HMMA. I like because they're all film oriented. And the music is sort of secondary. It's always at the end. But if we put this in Holiday, and he got a nomination for that this year, which is, it's a nice thing. It's a validation that he's on the right track. But any award is what you make it. Even a Grammy doesn't do anything for you if you don't, really know how to market yourself.
For sure.
So, anyways, this is what we did, and I'll shut up. But you can see. I'll make sure I get the renderer here going because you can see.
Sure. Everything floating around in there. Okay.
baby girl was 7. She handed me a note she wrote to Santa Claus. She said, Daddy, can you send this to the North Pole for me? It's important that it gets there in time because I want a dolly, a pair of skates and a trolley. But as she spoke, this awful feeling came over me. You see, I was barely able to put food on the table, and I knew Christmas couldn't be what she wanted it to be. So I told her, honey, Christmas isn't presents or tinsel on a tree or decorations hanging in the hall. No, Christmas isn't presents. What we really need to see is the love we give to one another. Oh, that's the best gift of all. When I finished speaking, I didn't really know if she could understand what it broke my heart to say.
There's the first thing that happened.
Yes, the ubiquitous Pro Tools crash.
But that's okay. This is actually, I wanted to show you this, and this is a real quick fix. I just have to close this out. But that was a good point about the LFE, and there's a lot of people that really don't use it at all, to use it a little bit, to use too much. And I think you're always best to have if this is a real safe point, and I had to learn the hard way, make your mix sound really great without it, and make sure it has enough bass. And then you add just a little tiny bit where you need it. And that's where I think the best way of using an LFE is. If you use it for special effects, like when you're watching movies, it'll rattle the floor, but you don't really, that's cool. And I'll play you another song that it does that sort of thing, and it's meant to rumble, move some fat cells around.
So
speaking for myself.
before we move on, before we go to the next, this sounds great, by the way. It's really cool.
Thank you.
I wonder if we could kind of dig into some individual elements of this and see, how it translates over Sessionwire. So, start with maybe like the beds and kind of demonstrate them, and then find a couple of objects that you've really like put in a specific place that we can try and pick out in space.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me just, sometimes the renderer gets a little finicky and doesn't know where it's at. Isolating this is going to be a little bit more complicated than it sounds, only because I've frozen so many of the tracks.
Right.
And, but let me see what I can solo. Right now I can do it through a different way of, this is, by the way, this has stacks of vocals and probably about, 8 strings that were done about 5 times, and 3 times the triple. And then what I had was had him do a high pass from the mid up and a low pass from the mid down. Then that way I can really control the highlights of when I'm mixing,
right?
Instead of just having everybody just do the same parts 5 or 6 times. And it's something that I prefer. Maybe some other people don't like that. I don't know, but I think it's great. I have these subgroup to see, because you're going to hear some of these frozen. You're going to hear other things with it. But let me see if I can get some of these. I can do it better in a different mix that I have. If you want to wait for that one.
Sure. Yeah. If that works.
Let's
better.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
okay.
I just to give you an idea, these strings are really incredible.
Yeah,
but I put them all in.
They sounded real,
Yeah, they're all. This is what I've got in each one of these pockets.
Holy moly!
So
okay.
there's no lack of tracks, but I could easily use up 120 objects. So again, what I do is I channel all these into subgroups.
Mm-hmm.
Low strings, what is this? Alt strings. I can't remember what I did. all strings. So these are basically doubles, and then I think this is a first pass all, so that's the third, and then there's down here there are two other ones that are just the high and low. Let's see here. It's going to be a little difficult. Let's see. Hang on a second. Nope. Oh, take that off. I find myself troubleshooting more than I do anything else. There's so many things to do. There's that noise again. Okay, hang on a second. But if I can show you one new thing that I'm working with, and it's why it's crashing it. And it's a plugin that I thought was amazing as far as what it does, and that gives us a master fader plugin. Basically, each one of these plugins is they're tied together without having to link them together. So, let me get back here and get the mile worth of strings down to a minimum. So you can hear the difference once I play it, and I'll just bypass it. But this is how many of the instances I have in here, and I had to freeze the tracks in order to give myself enough headroom to use this. But listen to the difference when you're hearing with and bypass. This is going to bypass all 47 of these if it works. Oops, got to try one more thing. It's a little finicky too, and it's probably going to be out of the door pretty soon. And the reason being is that Avid's just come out with a thing called the album assembly, and it's great, and it has the same general idea. But I like this idea because I can go in and I can do the mastering on the overall Atmos mix. But I can also go in here and tweak these individual channels where when you look at let me see if I can find here for you. This is the new Atmos album assembler that it's not very expensive. It's about $99. But you can put your Atmos in here, and then you can put a stereo reference, and then you can balance it off, and then there's EQ settings that you can get into, which I don't have in here. I could show you later if you want to, but
yeah, that's okay.
I had to load this in. Let me just do. I'm sorry, I hate to complete my thought. Let me
Okay.
complete because
Yeah.
it didn't load in. Sometimes this doesn't load in all the settings, so you should hear a difference this time.
Wow.
So the power of this is incredible, and you saw how easy that is. And I got a compressor, and I have a clipper, and I have a limiter.
I could see how that could take up some CPU.
And it's got a couple glitches in it. And
Yeah.
there's some issues, and I've talked to the company about it. And they got the first one like really fast, and you're doing the same thing. You're developing as you go. And I've never seen you guys any better, and that's what excited me about getting involved full time. I let my audio what is it called? Audio movers. Yeah, I'm not renewing this year. I'm going with you guys. So
Ooh, can we grab
it's a commitment.
Can we grab an audio quote?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's earned. I know you guys are doing a great job. I've seen you everywhere and doing comparisons left and right and to audio movers, and I think you're much further off. As a matter of fact, I even had a long discussion with the audio mover guys, and they were claiming that they could stream all these channels and stay in sync, and it does not work. So
Okay.
I wasted a lot of time I'll never get back. But you guys are on the right track, and we've talked about it a lot of different ways that you're going to be expanding as well. And I'm putting my money in you guys. So somebody else did the same thing. So you obviously heard the difference, and that's the power of that plugin. If I'm going to hang in with them, and they're going to hopefully be able to improve. And if I have to go through the occasional reboot of the renderer, that's so what? As I can get full passes. I just can't be doing a lot of stopping and starting, and again having this the loop back in the loop, just as one other thing. And we're streaming here on videos too, so
Right.
who knows what kind of CPU stuff is going on in the background. But
Yeah.
anyways,
This is fantastic. Did you want to jump to that other session if we can kind
Yeah.
of pick it apart a little bit more? And
yeah, it's a little easier. Thanks.
yeah, no problem. I really want to get into checking out some individual objects and hearing what you're doing with it.
Great.
Yeah.
And while that's loading up, quick comment / question is this not coming back to the age of the Orotone? And what I mean by that is, back in the
I
day,
remember that.
we were always checking our mixes in mono on a little tiny speaker that would be in the back of a Valiant.
I was there.
Yeah. So, in that sense, Atmos in all its glory is amazing. But at the end of the day, it's going to be AirPods or headphones or you said through stereo speakers. So I think there's got to be a real focus on what is your mix actually sounding for the people that are going to be listening to it at the end of the chain. So I had another discussion with a fellow who's doing Atmos in Las Vegas, and he said he took his Atmos session to LA, and he said it was just about a complete train wreck because when he went to that playback environment, it wasn't properly calibrated, and he had to get Dolby in, and it was just, he said it was a complete nightmare. So
It's still it's a growing business. It's a new baby at this point. It's in the infancy stages, and there are going to be people that are. I mean, you have major players that are asking, "What do you think? How are you doing it? Why does the mix take so long? And how do we get recouped by the record companies if it takes us longer to do that than a stereo mix? What's our incentive, or their incentive?" So right off the bat, I think that the way to get through this is you have to sacrifice some time. And it's for your learning curve and also for the sake of art and the future of art, because we're not going anywhere as we stand right now. If we keep on selling, you send your stuff out to CD Baby or any of the distribution places or even the Orchard, you're going to be one of thousands and thousands every day. But right now, there's a chance that you might be able to be seen because there's not that many in the big picture that are being released in Dolby Atmos every day. Mm-hmm. Then again, you have film and television. So I'm looking at the fact that, okay, the public, I have to back up a second. I had 10 people over here because there was an award show here in Nashville, and 5 of those people never heard their mixes before. Oh, I'm talking down to you, I'm sorry. They never heard their mixes to you. And when they came in here, it was just like night and day. They just awed. But they had been making choices to go ahead and use their 3D binaurals instead of a stereo mix, because they compared the two. Without a comparison, it's really difficult to know that what you're hearing is what you're hearing. So on my site, I have some my old site. I have some ABs of an older way of doing 3D binaural, so people could really hear the expansion that I got out of a plugin called Dear VR. But that isn't good on stereo speakers. No matter how I tried, it was too edgy, and there was phasing going on, and it just didn't work. But now, I find that the speakers are almost acting like soundbars. So I'm listening, and matter of fact, Apple will tell you that their spatial audio works on speakers, and that's why I'm drifting towards their concept, is that it sort of throws the sound around. And if you listen, sometimes I've actually, of course, it could have been, no sleep and a lot of drugs when I was younger. No, I'm kidding. But I swear I can hear things back there, and I occasionally I'll look up and I'll see that center speaker's not up. I've even had other people in the room do the same thing, and we stand up and we look, because it's just like it's throwing. It's like an up speaker. And I think that enjoyment just by itself, even if it's not predictable, or maybe it's happening in ways that you really can't say, okay, I'm going to make this happen. The binaural settings are really important. When you get in there and you deal with a stereo file and you start manipulating that metadata, say, for example, you have a nice stereo synth, and I want one to be the object to be off completely, and then I put the other one anywhere from near to mid to far. And sometimes, depending on what I'm looking at, I might want to have something just appear to be far, even though it's right in my face, because that's what the purpose is for. It's not reverb; it's to place the image where it's at in in your perspective, but only feeling like it's far. And there's a point in there somewhere I was going to make. You got to bring me back here, Brendan.
That's okay. Yeah. Well,
I think I took you off a cliff and I dropped you. I'm
Woo!
sorry.
Let's open the session here. Let's
Love that.
yeah, whichever one you're comfortable with, and we'll check out some beds. We'll check out some objects. I really want people to experience this over Sessionwire.
No, I appreciate that. There's some really good comments too. Thank you guys.
Yeah, this is great.
Very positive.
Yeah.
But I think it's, again, back to the time factor. It is going to take longer because you have all these mixes that are coming from one mix. So you're literally you're mixing the 714, you're mixing it for 5.1, so you got to check that. You're mixing it for the stereo, mixing it for the phones. It's all one file. And in order to find that sweet spot, it takes time. And yeah, you could I have been seeing a lot of people cheat, and I want to make this real quick too. When you get your 8, by the way, the render is on sale. I should be a salesman. I'm in the wrong business. It's on sale, $99 at Avid. And I would definitely, at $300, if you're really interested in Atmos, pick it up, even if you're not ready for it yet. $99 is a great deal. And you can certainly get acclimated with the phones again.
Well, you sold me.
Well, there was something. Let me just play you this mix, because I think this was done by Grant Malloy Smith. He's somebody he's an indie, Americana, and he's struggling like most indies to try to figure out a path. And we got into 3D binaural stuff even before Avid, because he feels the same as me, that the headphone experience is going to be the first start, and that's where everybody can afford it. And the way that another big point, that by releasing 3D binaural mixes instead of stereo, you don't have to have the $250 to $400 phones that they're saying, because you have the H chip that you're only going to be able to hear 3D binaural and spatial audio on Apple. It's everywhere. It's on any phone, and that's how you're listening to it right now. You're listening to 3D binaural, which proves that it's not. And people have asked, well, we don't. I've actually had a distribution company go, we don't release those files. I said, what do you mean you don't release it? It plays everywhere. It's embedded stereo file with encoded binaural codes. Anyways, people will learn, and I think it's just a matter of being patient and doing what we're doing today. Is just giving people some guidance on how to not make the wrong moves is really important to me. I had one mentor in New York City with one call and just get me a beginning, middle, and end setup. And then the rest of it was just amazing. I mean, I could take over from there, and I made some mistakes, and and that's how you do it, but you have to redo. If you lose that sweet spot, you just need to redo or save your mixes back at least every 15 minutes. Save one physically. Don't wait for the backups, because those will get rewritten.
Right.
And then I've gone back to several of them because I didn't want to have to redo the whole mix. But it's a constant struggle of back and forth, especially when lead vocals, where you might get it sounding really sweet in the center, sort of center front speakers, and then you put it in stereo and it like jumps out at you.
Right.
And so that's the biggest challenge. Where does that go, and how does it work? So whatever you're hearing has been the combination of that research. And all right, so stop blabbing, Silverman. Let's see. I'm just gonna scroll in here and find the beginning. Okay, that was really great. Hang on. It helps to turn that on. That's on input on the render.
Okay.
It was on. Okay, so let's try this another way. Well, I thought I had this one running. Hang on.
It takes a bit of setup for sure.
Well, also one of the things that I find that's really difficult is the IOs, as you can see right here, they get funny, and so it's just one of these things you have to keep troubleshooting, and you need to get those so they're all playing nice with each other.
Right.
So that looks the same, and that's not right because, well, actually it is. As long as these are all connected. If this looks like it's in italics, it's not connected properly.
Right.
Objects are really a challenge. Okay, so hang on a second.
For anybody watching still, I'll repost this little link here, and be sure to head to www.sessionwire.com/Black Friday 2022. We're selling our Black Friday promotion right now, Sessionwire, for $99, $51 off of the annual subscription price of $150, and you get grandfathered into this version when we launch in the next few weeks. So be sure to check that out.
Indeed.
There we go. Ooh.
Bless us, Jesus, we're going down again. We're rooming pillar boys, West Virginia men. Hey now, pickaxe in my hand. We'll load our quota, brother, load it if we can. Oh, the coal comes up when a man goes down. That time will keep the devil coming round. Lord, save me, Jesus, come get me on the ground. Oh, the coal comes up when a man goes down. Lady doctor, it's getting hard to breathe. I got the miner's lung like Daddy before me. Hatred ain't got no place. There's just one color here, holes in every face. Oh, the coal comes up when a man goes down. Like that will keep the devil coming round. Lord, save me, Jesus, come get me on the ground. Oh, the coal comes up when a man goes down. I'll cut coal long as I'm able. I've had mouths to feed since I was 10. That coal put 3 squares on our table. Oh, the coal comes up when a man goes down. Like that will keep the devil coming round. Lord, save me, Jesus, come get me on the ground. Oh, the coal comes up when a man goes down.
Wow, Jeff. Yeah.
Cool. That somebody mentioned had a lot of movement. Oh, that's cool. Thanks. Uh, every mix is its own entity. I don't move to move unless it really feel like it's genuinely a song that deserves it. Having more space to work with really helps. Uh, and some I'll leave static, like a jazz quartet or quintet, whatever. I think it's better to create the room first and have you feel that you're in an environment, and that's what to me is immersive. The other stuff is just fun, and why not? Because we can do it, and if you enjoyed that, that's great. If I hit you with a whole album like that, you might actually maybe, but I wouldn't do that to you. But I have a song for my wife that's very much like that. It was the first one that I did, and it's crazier than that. But I find myself, first of all, getting the mix where it sounds right, and then I go through the binaural settings and making sure that each track has its metadata set at the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, Apple doesn't read metadata, and they put their own juice on it called spatial. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. And I think that's a mistake. I hate to say that, but for all the things that they've made forward motion for us all, I think it's just one of those things that'll evolve and it'll get better.
Mm-hmm.
And matter of fact, they're now starting with a new update on my phone. It's analyzing my ears. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I noticed immediately that the spatial audio wasn't as aggressive. It was almost like it was shaking. The versus the binaural was very smooth and it just felt open and smooth. It's hard to explain it any other way. So not every mix sounds equal in spatial audio in Apple's world either. Some will be bad. I mean, some will really sound great. I think that whole genre needs a little evolving for the music side, but it's probably great for games. So they might be thinking that first out of the box, and then, but everything's changing all the time. It's like monthly. There's something new that comes out between Apple or something new in Pro Tools or some new news, and that's why I'm banking on this one. As far as the bed, I think this one is not acting real nice. Coming back again, I thought I had it right when I was working on it. Oh, well, there you go. You can see a couple objects there.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So let's see. So you can see there's some things up in the that's just one instrument, and you can imagine that being that immersive. Now I was going to mention something about cheating. When you get your Apple Music application set up and you're streaming through your Atmos render, which you could do, and you can actually see. You might not hear all the tracks, but you can see all the levels and where people are at, and you have to keep very stringent levels, minus 18. That's an average. That's not like you can't sit there. And it has a place you can analyze it, and there's a -1 peak, a true peak that you have to keep to. It moves around depending on the dynamics, and I've never had anything kick back, but I'm not pushing the limits where when I first started I was pushing a little harder.
Okay.
There's something else I was going to say. So much to say.
Well,
my brain already thought about it and left.
Yeah. Well, can we find like an object that's really moving in here and see, kind of look at how you automate moving that around in space?
Well, that's. I mean, I can show you right here with. Let me see here. Okay. That's not the place. Oh, those are the stereo files. Actually, I could have played you a difference between the stereo and the 3D binaural.
Oh, the binaural's much more interesting.
Well, you can hear it. I guess you should be able to feel it and hear it. So if that's the case, once we see more people like Mercedes put these in a car, put Atmos in a car, then you're going to get people that are actually going to have that awe factor, that same exact thing that happened here, and they're going to go, wait a minute, I have Atmos in my. I've been listening to movies that way for years,
Right.
or I've got something that's close. Maybe I don't want to use that sound bar that they're probably trying to sell real cheap now because they're all getting nervous. A sound bar does not do what what 12 speakers will do around you,
Right.
and even up speakers. I'm not a fan of those either. I mean, how can you judge an up speaker based on a ceiling that you have no? You can have a beam and say, okay, well, it's doing some intelligent, let's see where it's reflecting, and
Right.
but there's nothing like a direct signal coming at you like this. This is really much more immersive than anything I would have ever heard off of a sound bar. If they could get the sound bars to where they just have Bluetooth all around you, I'd say that's the future to me. If it can get little speakers that you can just clamp up the top of your ceiling and not have to run wires, I'm all for it.
Yep.
But you need to have that speaker separation and not diverted by anything that says it's going to give you an immersive experience. It'll certainly be better than stereo
Right.
if you're going to compare it. But anyways, let me see if I can find something here that's. All right, let's see. Hopefully this will play nice. Are you hearing the difference?
Oh yes. Yep.
So behind is a little difficult for any phones. I don't care what anybody says. That's your challenge point. So I think you have to be creative on how you approach behind, and that could be sometimes just adding EQ, along with you might want to put that particular thing even on a far on your binaural settings. You might want to with your metadata. Just put it in the back. Put a little bit of maybe reflection back there as well in the front, so you feel like you're getting some wash back.
Right.
And then it's all experimentation, but just mute it a little bit. Just kind of take the highs and size too. You're right. And size makes a big difference with the. I used a lot of this in my, and if you want to hear it, it's my wife's thing called Devil with the Blue Eyes, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of this because I really felt that this was important to go in and out and up. So that's a good comment. I'm happy to play that if you'd like. It's easy enough to put it in the render. It's up to you, Brendan.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's up to
Okay.
you. Like, yeah, this is
I'm-
I think the more that we demo,
Thanks, guys.
the more exciting it is. It's not that it's not exciting right now, but this is cool.
Well, I think what you guys are doing is cool too, and we're doing this over Sessionwire, and I think that can't be forgotten. The quality is amazing. I have figured out a way to do it through YouTube and Zoom, and Zoom distorts.
Right.
You can't hear it. You don't know what you're doing, and there's really it's amateur compared to what you guys are doing.
Awesome.
And I think that's what's the Connect is really. We have the pandemic to thank for this, but. I was doing this for years before that, and so
Right.
when the pandemic hit, I sort of felt sort of like a buffer. It was almost like, I feel almost ashamed to say this, but the business was better because I had it rolling with different plugins. I mean, we're talking back with Nicecast, with that had a 2-second delay between sending and receiving. I'm going try to get a conversation going with anybody keeping their brains.
Seriously.
It's like that somebody being on a delay on your phone, and that happens a lot with tech service for some reason. I don't know why. Very hard.
Can we just take
But,
a moment just to pause and who engineered this?
Me.
You engineered this. What
I mixed and mastered. Yeah.
I see you mixed and mastered, but who recorded it?
I recorded it.
You did.
No, let's put it this way. No, I did not record everything.
Okay.
I recorded a lot of the overdubs. Like
Awesome.
But Grant did probably 80% of the cutting in his home studio. And then he brought it to me, and then we talked about it. And we thought, okay, let's get, because Nashville's just filled up with the best players in the world here. And we've delegated who we wanted to play and what to replace on his. Sometimes he would just do a sample just to get the idea.
Right.
And so he's really great at doing file management. And I think any producer is in love with an artist that does that for themselves. So, and we co-produced it. So in all fairness, he really did contribute a lot. And I wanted him to save money, which that's probably why I'm not richer. Because the first album, he had me do too much stuff. And I think, I'm all for doing tech stuff. And, I like to pitch vocals. I think that's important for me to do it versus just anybody. Because I'm a singer I had the history of being a singer. I won't do that to you right now. But I think it's really crucial that you don't use anything auto. And you go in and you literally just be careful with the intended notes, like implied notes. Like, for example, if a guy's singing his heart out, well, he might not grab every single note when he's scooping up. That note down here might really need to be up here. And when you put it there, people hear it. And then, it's okay to keep the performance level. But, I'm very cautious with vibrato. I don't want to take it out. So when I get in trouble, because Melodyne is really great, but if you ever want to preserve and you want to make a note really long, I would use Revoice 4.
Oh yeah, the new Synchro
unbelievable.
Arts. Is it Synchro Arts?
Yeah, but that's been the 4's been out. They have another version that they just put out for like $100 or something. It doesn't do anything that it's any. But the 4 is, it's so deep that I haven't even grabbed it. That's the only thing I've ever done when I say I need that long note to be not. And it keeps that same. It's just these guys are from Mars. I swear to God.
Onward.
Onward is. So I'll put in this. This is called my wife's release is called Devil with the Blue Eyes.
Okay.
And if you want to check it out, you can check it out on all the streaming stations. But here's the place I think everybody should at least go and have a look around. Ugh. I think that should work.
Awesome.
And that's where you can find the raw files. So if you really want to purchase something, if nothing else, look at see that you can sell an album for 21 to 23 albums, $23. So they're sort of taking the album community, that will pay more for vinyl, but now they're paying more for Atmos because you still can't buy anything on. Now I could record anything that comes. I can actually channel anything in Atmos, Apple. Although I won't say this, I'll say this kind of quietly, but it's just I route it through my renderer and I can easily record it and then use it as a reference. But I wouldn't sell it or anything like that. But why? Because I can just stream on the side and it's always there for me to use, but I only rent it.
Right.
So that's the big plus of seeing where we could go again with the music business to raise the bar of what we're used to just people getting for free. And that's what it has really upset me about the streaming thing that we'll never get. It's not worth getting angry about. Yes, it's great that they've raised it up a point or something, and but that's not going to make any. It's just not going to help. So I'm always looking somewhere else to try to at least go where there's hope.
Right.
And it's like a stock market. You invest in something before it's big. You don't invest in it while it's big.
Right.
And with the intention of somebody guiding you there that would know, hey, this shows promise.
Amazing.
Okay, let me open this master file.